Joining us now to talk more about the case legally, Brian Claypool with us this morning. Thank you for being here. Is this an overreach by the prosecutors to go after criminal charges? What did you think when you heard this news come down?
Yeah, hey, Marni, great to be back with you. I think the prosecutors got 2/3 of this equation correct. I think in terms of Hannah Gutierrez-Reed, she's the armorer, Marni. Her sole job is to make sure that there's no live ammunition in that gun. Flat out, period. That's her job. She didn't do her job, so charges against her for involuntary manslaughter are appropriate. Let's move to Alec Baldwin. I think the prosecutor had no choice but to charge Alec Baldwin. Why? Not only because he pulled the trigger and he didn't look inside to see whether there was ammunition, but he was the producer, Marni. He was responsible for the entire set. And there had been prior reports of inadvertent discharge of live ammunition on the set, and some workers had left the set because of safety conditions. So I think you had to bring him in as well and charge him. But let's talk about one person who's missing in these charges. Dave Halls, he was the assistant producer. He is a critical piece, Marni, in trying to figure out who's at fault. Why? Because he told investigators that he never even looked inside the chamber of the gun before he handed it to Alec Baldwin. And on top of that, he tells Baldwin the gun is cold, meaning there's no ammunition in the gun. So how is it that Halls cops a plea deal for a misdemeanor and he is not part of being charged for involuntary manslaughter?
All right, Brian, we'll answer your own question then. How is that?
Yeah, well, I think what prosecutors wanted to do is they wanted to have the focus on Baldwin as the captain of the ship and the armorer whose job is to make sure there's no ammunition in the gun. But here's the problem with that, Marni. I think the failure to have Halls as a defendant in this case at trial benefits Alec Baldwin's defense team. Because think about it, Marni, if Halls was charged with the same crime, right, involuntary manslaughter, which I think he should have been, he would have then probably taken the Fifth Amendment, right? He would have pled silent. I'm not going to talk. Fifth Amendment right to silence. Why is that important? Because now that he hasn't been charged, he's copped a plea deal. That means there's a final adjudication of his case. He's going to be subpoenaed by Baldwin's lawyers. He's going to be forced to walk into that court, and rest assured, Baldwin's lawyers will cross-examine him for hours, and they will point this blame solely at the feet of Halls because he was the last one, Marni, who touched that gun.
So there's three things here, and I hear what you're saying. So you've got the debate over who should have checked the gun ultimately, and you could add how did a live round end up in it first. Then you've got the culpability of you're in possession of the gun and you pull the trigger or you don't. Alec Baldwin says he didn't. And then thirdly, which can be disputed, right? He says the gun malfunctioned. The third thing is he had the gun. He's alleged to have pointed it in her direction. That can't be disputed, right? Or can it? I mean, you can't have a gun and point it at a person and not be held responsible if something happens.
Yeah, that's a good point. So let's talk about a couple of the facts that gravitate against Alec Baldwin. So he's got a good argument that there were two tiers of people handling the gun before it gets to him, right? Gutierrez-Reed, then Halls, then he gets the gun. But what he did wrong here that is going to cause him a real hurdle at trial is the script, Marni, did not call for Baldwin to pull the trigger, number one. So he pulls the trigger, script says you're not supposed to pull the trigger. And here's the second fact that's going to be a hard haul for him at trial. He says in an interview, you've already played this before, he says in an interview on live television or on television with George Stephanopoulos, hey, I never pulled the trigger. Why is that important? Because the FBI did a copious investigation. And this is why I think he was charged. They did an investigation. They did forensic testing of that gun. They unequivocally determined that the trigger on the gun had to be pulled. So now you've got Baldwin with major credibility issues at trial.
All right, well, we'll watch this play out. Always good to talk to you, Brian Claypool, trial attorney and legal analyst. Thank you for your time this morning. Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.